Good morning. Today is Tuesday, June 15th, and I'm Kenny Polcari, host of the party, Morning Market Commentary, everything you need to know. And you'll notice this morning it's not the ocean in the background, it's not even the beach. It's a beautiful, lush landscape here at a home in Tarrytown, New York, where I'll be for the next week. And then I'll be off to Cape Cod, so the views in the background are going to be different over the next 2 weeks. But what do we do and how do we get started? Things you need to know. Stocks remained mixed yesterday, right? As we all wait for the Fed. And what will they say? The markets are concerned. Oil continues to advance, and the summer hasn't even really kicked off yet. Bitcoin pushes up and through 40,000 after Elon Musk sends another tweet over the weekend. NASDAQ makes a new high as the rotation into tech begins anew. And so what are we having for dinner tonight? We're going to have the pappardelle with leeks and peas and a light cream sauce. It's delicious, it's simple to make, and it's something that will become a fan favorite. Stocks were mixed in trading on Monday, right? Not really doing much of anything. It was really kind of an uneventful day. The Dow ended the day down 85 points, or 1/4%, while the S&P pushed higher by 7 points. The NASDAQ, the clear winner of the day, it closed at a new record once again as investors go all tech, right? All growth. They're going all in. They're suddenly, forgetting every reason that they sold tech a couple of months ago, and now they're going all in. Tech, Nasdaq added 105 points, or nearly 0.7%, and the Russell gave back 9 points, or 0.4%. We saw industrials, basic materials, financials, consumer staples, all just a touch weaker. We saw energy, consumer discretionary, communications, and utilities were a touch higher. But again, it was tech that was the outlier, right? That stole the show, with the XLK, which is a tech ETF, gaining 1%, as investors appear to be accelerating the push back into the sector after they abandoned ship a couple of months ago over concerns of rising rates and maybe a weakening economy as people filed back into the recovery trade and the industrial trade and value trade, right? Treasury prices were a bit weaker as money moved out of treasuries and back into stocks, sending bond yields up to 1.5%. But that did not seem to hurt the overall tone of the market. It did take some fluff out of the industrial names, which is why we saw some weakness there, right? Yesterday, though, it was clearly growth over value, and that was evident in the SPYV versus the SPYG, right? The growth ETF rose 0.9%, while the value ETF lost 0.5%, but just not to get crazy yet, right? Because value is still way outperforming growth for the year, up 17 cents versus up 17% versus up 11% for growth. So value is still outperforming. The recent rotation now back into tech is being credited to the thoughts that inflation has peaked, a weaker than expected NFP report a week ago, a stalled commodity rally that has seen lumber prices and other commodity prices suddenly come in this week, a complicated path for infrastructure spending, right? The Fed has done an outstanding job of jawboning the idea that inflation is transitory, right? That it's nothing to worry about, allowing investors to feel more comfortable that there's going to be no change in policy at the press conference tomorrow. The big question, though, is whether or not Jay is going to say that the Fed has even begun to think about a change in policy, or worse yet, that they've actually started that conversation without anyone really knowing on whether, and finally, whether the dot plot, which is that plot that each one of the members, puts on a little piece of graph paper, whether or not that dot plot has changed. And so all eyes are going to be focused on that. So pay attention to what they say about the dot plot. Gold ended the day at 1865 after it's kind of consolidating and retreating a little bit after its recent rally, while oil continues to push ahead, up 19 cents yesterday to close the day at 71.07. That's right, $71 for a barrel of oil. And not to be outdone, once again, Bitcoin surges by 8% after Lonnie Musk over the weekend sends out a tweet that says that Tesla is prepared to start accepting Bitcoin as a form of payment once the Bitcoin miners that use these supercomputers powered by renewable energy, once they can prove that they're using renewable energy versus fossil fuels, then Tesla will once again begin to start accepting Bitcoin. And that sent Bitcoin up through 40,000 as the excitement builds, right? And over the weekend, the news is really a non-event, right? The G7, nothing significant came out of the G7 other than a bunch of photo opportunities. Nothing on infrastructure spending, despite the fact that there's this bipartisan support for it. And so the feeling is that one way or the other, the Democrats are going to force this through on their own with no help from the Republicans via reconciliation. The New York Fed, though, very interesting, released a survey that flies in the face of what the Fed's telling us about inflation, suggesting that many in the country expect a broad-based increase in inflation expectations, highlighted by the fact that shipping and freight costs are just out of control now. But that did little to dampen the mood yesterday, right? Nobody seems to be paying attention to it. And as noted, all eyes will be on the Fed starting today as the men and women go behind the Iron Curtain for 2 days to create policy going forward. The expectations by some are for the Fed to admit they are hinting at tapering, and at the pace and the pace at which that may happen. But they will stop short of providing any significant or formal starting date. Sentences that include sometime before the substantial further progress is made is still expected. That's that sentence that they leave in there, they've left in there, they expect it to be in there. Again, others say that it's too close. It's too close to call, and they expect that the dot plot will remain unchanged through 2023. Inflation expectations are expected to move a bit higher, yet Jay's going to counter with the word transitory. He's going to say it at least a dozen times. And blaming the bottlenecks in the system is what's causing the latest surge in prices. And once again, once those are cleared up, then the imminent threat of inflation will subside. Remember, if you say it enough, then I guess it just must be true. If they keep telling us it's transitory, then it just must be transitory, right? In any event, he's also expected to say that the Fed takes overheating very, very seriously, and that they have enough pots and pans in the kitchen to keep it just simmering on the back burner versus allowing it to boil over on the front burner. In any event, this morning we're waking up to see European markets are higher, U.S. futures are higher, not significantly, but U.S. futures are up, right? Dow's up 25 points, the S&P's up 5, the Nasdaq's up 20, and the Russell is ahead by 5 points. Eco data today is important. It includes the PPI, which is the Producer Price Index. That's the price of raw material that goes into the production process right at the very beginning. Expectations are calling for a month-over-month increase of 0.5%, yet year-over-year increases of 6.2%, which is a very significant number. But we saw that last week in the CPI, that significant year-over-year number that they right away talked off the ledge, and they told you that it was out of line, and they took out used cars, and they took out all that other stuff, and they adjusted the numbers so it all looked good, right? Ex-food and energy, the increase is expected to be up 0.5% month-over-month and up 4.8% year-over-year, right? And so once that comes out, then expect to hear everybody start, opining on what the number really means, and is there anything to be concerned about, and is inflation really spinning out of control, and expect them to tell you that it's not spinning out of control at all, that it remains transitory. Retail sales are expected to be down 0.5%, which is really crazy considering, have you been to a mall lately? Have you seen the lines out the door? Have you seen the cars in the parking lot? How they're going to come out with a negative number in retail sales is beyond me, but that's what the expectation is. Capacity utilization of 75% and industrial production of up 0.6%. Yesterday, billionaire investor Paul Tudor Jones told us that tomorrow's Fed press conference is going to be key for Jay Powell's career. Because if he saying that if he comes out and he says the wrong thing, or he's unclear about where the Fed is going, that it could spark a big sell-off in risk assets, think stocks, right? And while I agree that's always possible, right? If the message comes out and it's wrong, or investors interpret it one way versus the way it's meant, that's always the risk that will spark a big sell. I do not think that's going to be the case, because I think, up until now, Jay Powell has done a very good job of jawboning. He's kept everybody calm. He's kept everybody quiet. He's talked everybody off the ledge. I don't think that tomorrow it's going to be any different. But hey, listen, weirder things have happened, right? This morning, European markets are trading slightly higher. Nothing significant, but they are up as they await the Fed news. German inflation data shows that inflation in Germany came up 2.4%, and in France it's up by 1.8%. Oil this morning is up again, trading at $71.29 a barrel, as talks between Iran and the world are fading. So any worry that there was going to be more supply coming from Iran are fading, and that's putting upward pressure on oil prices, as well as demand continues to surge around the world, and we're not even at the 4th of July yet. Bitcoin, like I said, is trading just above 40,000. Ethereum's trading at 2,600, and Dogecoin is still hovering at 32 cents, really not reacting to the Lonnie Musk tweet. The S&P closed at 42.55 last night, right? Another new high, and with futures up again this morning and European markets higher, we can expect it to test higher still as investors are pushing the envelope. But watch for the conviction. Is it really broad-based? Is it really, does it have enough momentum behind it, right? Because any advance that's weak versus broadly based is going to be a clue that you should understand, right? Because if it's weak, it's really questioning, are investors really believing this? Are they being much more cautious? If it's much more broad-based and they start taking everything, then the sense is going to be that investors are comfortable with what Jay Powell's going to say and they don't expect any big change in policy. Look, 4 members of the Fed have been openly talking about tapering, right? They've floated that balloon, they've put it out there, the market has not reacted negatively, and so quite honestly, any conversation that does not recognize the fact that they've been talking about is actually the one that's going to cause confusion. So my sense is he's going to have to come out and say they're obviously either they're thinking about talking about it, or that they're going to talk about it. But I fully expect it's going to be Jackson Hole where the meeting comes, where they announce that the tapering will begin in a number of months, and I think those number of months are going to be November and December, and maybe early 2022. I do not believe that tapering will begin in September, October, which are typically volatile times of the year anyway. So I think the last thing the Fed wants to do is add even more volatility to an already volatile time. Remember what you can do. You can text the word invest to 21,000 on your phone, download it, get my digital business card. Feel free to text me, feel free to email me, or even give me a call. I'm always happy to discuss it. So let's talk about what we're having for dinner tonight. It's called the pappardelle with leeks and peas. Now, pappardelle, as you know, is a thick, wide, ribbon-like pasta, and this one we're going to serve with a light cream sauce and leeks and peas and onions and just a little bit of garlic, right? This recipe comes from the Piemonte region of Italy, which is northern Italy, the capital of which is Torino. And it borders, France and Switzerland, and so therefore it's got more of a French flair to it. Northern Italian food has much more of a French flair to it than Southern Italian food, which is much heavier with tomatoes and cheeses, right? So northern Italy, you get that French influence, so it's lighter sauces, creams, and stuff like that. So for this, you're going to need the pappardelle pasta. You're going to need 6 leeks, garlic clove, onion, a white Spanish onion, butter, light cream, and frozen peas, right? And you always need fresh grated Parmesan cheese and salt and pepper just to season, and olive oil. You're going to bring a pot of salted water to a rolling boil and then put it on the back burner, keep it covered, turn the heat down just so that it's ready when you need it. Now it's time to look at the leeks. Now, you know how the leek is, right? It's this big stalk, and it's white on the bottom, and then it goes from white to light green to dark green, right? Trim off the ends, right? Those little roots at the end, trim those off, and then cut the leek up to where the light green starts to turn dark green. Cut it there, then cut the leek lengthwise in half, and then slice it lengthwise into thin slices. So you want long strands of leek. You don't want to chop it this way on short strands. You want long strands of leek, right? So do that for all the 6 leeks. Trim the bottoms and then slice them lengthwise. Next, you're going to peel the onion. You're going to take your garlic clove. You're going to smash the garlic clove and rough chop it. In a big saute pan, you're going to put butter and a little bit of olive oil, right, so the butter doesn't burn. You're going to add the garlic. You're going to let it saute for a little bit. Now you're going to add the sliced leeks and the sliced onion to the pan. Leave the pan on medium heat. Don't turn it on medium high. You want this kind of to happen slow. You want the leeks and the onions to become translucent, but you don't want them to burn, right? So you're probably going to do that for 10 or 15 minutes, right? You'll saute the leeks and everything. Now, if you turn the heat up a little higher, it might be a little bit less time. But if you turn the heat up high, just don't leave it because you don't want it to burn. After that, after you've sauteed it, then you're going to add the frozen peas, right? You want a bag of frozen peas. Don't use the peas from the can. Use frozen peas. Put it in there, stir it up, saute it around for another 5 or 10 minutes. The peas need to defrost. They need to warm up. Season it with salt and pepper. Leave it on simmer and just set it aside. Don't turn the heat down to simmer. You can cover it and set it aside. Now, in the meantime, you're going to take your pappardelle pasta. You're going to put it in the boiling water. You're going to let that cook. Again, it's probably 8 minutes. At 8 minutes, you certainly want to taste it to make sure that it's not overcooked, right? So cook it just to the perfection, which is really al dente. You don't want mushy pasta. Once you do that, you're going to strain the pasta. You're going to always reserve a mug full of the pasta water. You're going to strain the pasta. You're going to put the pasta back in the pot. You're going to add a little bit of water to it. Reserve it. Just maybe add back a 1/4 cup of the pasta water. Stir it just so it's moist, and then add the pasta to the skillet that has the cream and the peas and the onions and the leeks. Toss it so that it's well coated. Now remember, the pasta will suck up some of the sauce. So if it looks like it's sucking up some of the sauce, take the rest of that pasta water, a little bit at a time, and add it back to the saute pan, just so that you moisten it again. You don't want it soupy but you want it moist, right? Now toss in a handful of fresh grated Parmesan cheese. Again, toss it and serve it immediately in warm bowls. You can have this with garlic bread and nice chilled white wine. And you know me, I always go for the Pinot Grigio and the Margarita, but you do what you want. In any event, it's a beautiful day here in Tarrytown, New York. The sun is out, you can see it. The trees are in full bloom, so it's beautiful, and I miss it in the Northeast, but it is what it is. In any event, take good care, and I'll see you tomorrow.